I'm showing it's 7 o'clock and we have 5 commissioners, which is a quorum. But that'll pose a problem down the road because we have some items that need commissioners who were present and voting to be voting this evening, and we don't have them all. But anyway, that being said, I'm opening this meeting, which has been duly posted in accordance with state law and Town of Dartmouth bylaws. This meeting is being conducted remotely due to Governor Healy's execution on March 28, 2025, of a further extension for hybrid remote meeting options to municipalities, which legislation extended the option through June 30, 2027. We have a raise your hand feature. We also have a wave your hand if all else fails, so you can be recognized. I would ask that you mute yourself until you're recognized for speaking. That'll allow for fewer distractions, and also we won't get any of the ambient noise that sometimes can interrupt the presentation. First item of business is to approve the minutes of August 26th. I have a motion to that effect, please.
So moved.
Have a second on that, please.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donald,
Donald, you're muted. You're still muted, Donald.
we'll come back to
Yes.
you. There you are.
Okay, yes.
Yep. Megan,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The second item is the approval of the field trip reports of September 9, 2025. A motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Donald,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We have the final administrative item is to receive the minutes of the September 9, 2025 meeting. They have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
We have seconded motion. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Donald.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We do not have any field trip reports this evening. We do have one public hearing, and that is a public hearing, DEP file 15-2800 NOI 2533. It's on the notice of intent from James Mullen and Nola Anderson, care of Crawford Lane Management, to begin a limited ecological restoration project of a salt marsh and adjacent upland to include the eradication of invasive common reed, Phragmites. I'm not going to read that next word, but I'm not a Latin scholar there, and other invasive
Australis.
species within buffer zone to a salt marsh and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, 10.32, and section 360-2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 87, lot 6, otherwise known as Beach Lane. On entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donald,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And I see, Jen, you're here, so you have the floor on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the applicant, Jen Crawford from Crawford Lane Management. This project is fairly simple in nature. The subject parcel, as you said, is out at Beach Lane. It is an approximately 1.3 acre parcel The resource areas located on the property are bordering vegetated wetland. We have flood zone VE at elevation 15, the salt marsh resource area. It is also, and their associated buffer zones, and it is also within estimated and priority habitat. We duly advertise this in the environmental monitor. We also received comment back from NHESP already, as well as a DEP file number. The project itself is a invasive species management and habitat restoration project. We submitted on our plan various areas for invasive species management, the most significant being the 2/3 of an acre of Phragmites management in the salt marsh. We also submitted our standard protocols for managing this species. We do a lot of this work on Cape Cod throughout the various towns, so we're very familiar with this particular invasives, as well as those located in the upland portions of the site. Our standard protocol for managing Phragmites, if the project starts in the winter months when it's dormant, we like the ability to be able to mow the old dead stalks during the winter months when everything is dormant, so that when the treatment season the next year comes around, we are only dealing with live growing stalks rather than contending with previous year's growth as well. Our typical initial treatment strategy for Phragmites that we routinely implement is a bundle cut and wipe method. So in the areas where Phragmites is growing densely, we literally take giant armfuls of it and wrap it in jute twine, tie it tightly, cut it, and then treat the cut stems. Even though this method is labor intensive, we found that it is extremely targeted, extremely selective, and uses a very low amount of herbicide in contrast with treating the entire plant or the entire stem, especially when you have very large established colonies of Phragmites that can be anywhere from 10 to 15 feet tall. So this is a very effective method that we have found works well. As with any invasive species management project, probably the most important part of this land management plan is the follow-up treatments, as well as the recognition that with pretty much all invasive species in all of our projects, there are neighboring parcels that often have these same or similar species growing on them. So maintenance of the project area, annual maintenance of the project area, monitoring, and ongoing maintenance to then hold those restored area boundaries is really critical to the success of these projects. In addition to the Phragmites management that we are proposing, there are 3 upland areas shown on our plan in various parts of the property that have a fairly high concentration of state-listed invasive species like multiflora rose, shrub honeysuckle, many of the typical species that you see. So we have also included the provision to manage those. In this particular case, because they are mixed in with many native species, all of these removals would be done by hand. They would be flush cut. The cut stems would be painted with an herbicide. The areas always get seeded with a native seed mix, which is listed on our plan. And then the upland areas also have a provision for a select number of native shrub species to be reincorporated into the area. In order to establish those shrub species in the upland, we also included the provision for a temporary above ground irrigation system. This is something that's very typical to our work. It's listed as above ground so that it can easily, at the end of the 2 or 3 year establishment period, simply be removed and taken away as it's no longer necessary. And it also ensures with some of these very hot, dry summers that we've been getting that those plants have the ability to fully establish in those upland areas. I think with that, that's a pretty good summary of the project as a whole. So I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions or comments that you may have about the project.
Thank you, Jen. Staff's comments on this, either Mark or Eduardo, you're both here.
Yeah, I've got it, Mike. We have seen several of these types of projects in the past. We have approved them on small scale lots, understanding that there is the potential for surrounding invasives to recolonize sites that are treated. So we know that this is a long-term maintenance type of project following the initial eradication procedures. I think Jen did a great job in summarizing it. Having previously done this work professionally, I thought that this presentation was a very comprehensive presentation. I think they've covered all of the angles that would need to be covered, and therefore staff is representing that the commission issue a standard order of conditions with one additional condition and some modified restoration conditions, which I will read. According to the existing conditions plan dated July 14, 2025, which shows a very accurate wetland delineation, a restoration plan, project narrative, and land management plan narrative, all dated September 11th, 2025. And the additional conditions, or the additional condition and modified conditions, condition 41 reads, the commission's preferred herbicidal application method is to hand wipe or apply. Foliar spray shall be minimized to the greatest extent possible and implemented only when necessary where hand application methods are not practical. Then I modified our condition 42, which is our standard restoration conditions, which reads, where project site areas are designated for resource replacement, replication, restoration, whether approved project impact violation or as a result of an enforcement order, all work shall conform to the following protocols. A, these areas shall also be secured with properly staked and entrenched hay bales or wattles and silt fence and regraded to natural contours prior to planting. All unstable bare ground shall be seeded with appropriate environmental seed mixes as per the conditions planted at the recommended density. B, aside from the restoration work authorized under this order, no additional activities of any type shall occur within 25 feet of the delineated wetland line of record established under this order, unless authorized in the future by the commission or an agent. C, all planting and restoration work shall continue through the life of this final order, and upon completion, a conservation agent shall be notified so that an inspection of said work can be made prior to the close of the growing season. D, the Conservation Commission shall require the minimum woody plant specifications to include all individual tree specimens as proposed with trunk DBH of no less than 1 inch, if applicable, and all shrub sizes of no less than 3 to 5 gallon pots / balls as proposed, if applicable, as opposed to any size specifications presented on the plan of record. E, monitoring shall be done and reported to the Conservation Commission following each growing season until 75% wetland vegetative cover has been achieved or throughout the complete term of this order. So that is staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Mark. Commissioners, do you have any questions either of Jen or of Mark? All right, I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that wants to be heard on this application? I don't see any. Hope I'm not missing anybody. Going once, going twice. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Donald?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, you've heard the presentation. You've heard staff's recommendation. I'll entertain an order for a standard order of conditions modified as articulated for our conditions 41 and 42 by Mr. Garrett. And that's on the plan dated July 14, 2025. And the supporting our ancillary documents that were dated September, I got 11th,
Yes.
2025.
So ordered.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donald,
yes,
Megan,
yes,
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you all very much for your time this evening. I appreciate it. And if any of you would like to come and volunteer on Cape Cod commissions, that would be a pleasure. Have a nice evening, folks. Thank you.
You
You're
too,
very
Jen.
welcome. We move now to our excuse me, our items for discussion. And we're needing a $263.19 approval for a new desk chair. I think that's very reasonable.
I saw the old one.
Yeah. Yeah. Less than pennies a day there. Okay, so have a motion to that effect, please.
So moved.
Seconded,
Second.
seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donald,
yes,
Megan,
yes,
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That passes unanimously. We also have another request for $249.60 for having our Conservation Commission truck towed to Wareham Ford due to brake failure. That must have been exciting. But I have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donald,
yes,
Megan,
yes,
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to items for discussion. The first is CPC's CR discussion. Is Buddy here, Mark?
I do not see him.
Was he expected to attend this evening's meeting?
Last time I spoke to him, he was planning to attend, and he forwarded me some documents earlier, late today, which I forwarded on to the commission. I don't know if you've seen them, so
I
he
did.
was aware of tonight's meeting, and my understanding was he was intending to show. I would recommend to the commission that we postpone this until the end of our discussion, see if he shows up.
I think that's a good recommendation. I think we'll do that. I don't think we need a motion for that because this is an item for discussion. So we can take things out of order here. The second was the DNRT Orchid conservation restriction at 179 Jordan Road. M6 1.2, I guess. That doesn't mean anything.
Maps it, stick, lot, dude.
Oh, L. Okay. That wasn't a 1, that was an L. Time for new
was an L.
glasses. So
I think Nick is
I see
here
Nick
too.
here, so you're ready to go. You got the floor, Nick. Or
Thank
Linda,
you.
one of you.
Thank you, commissioners. Hopefully you can hear me all right.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Yes, I've come before the commission tonight to request municipal certification on this conservation restriction. This will permanently protect over 12 and a half acres of this approximately 17-acre property on Jordan Road, which is significant for a number of reasons, least of which probably is its visual character and scenic nature. Jordan Road is a designated scenic road. But as the commissioners probably know, the eastern portion of this property is all mapped priority habitat for rare wildlife. In addition, there are wetlands on the property that will be protected and agricultural resources in the fields. So this CR is a result of many months of negotiation with the landowner and has already received review from the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs. Overall, it's really an excellent property to protect, and so happy to answer any questions that you might have before considering the municipal certification.
Thank you, Nick. Mark, staff's recommendation on this request?
Yeah, this is in an area where there are a lot of land holdings protected under CRs. So this would be very attractive as a further linkage through the area. The ownership of the property and the ownership of the CR will not be Conservation Commission's responsibility. They are only asking us for our support to to the ownership and DNRT's ownership of the CR. And I think I got that right, Nick?
That's right, yes.
So there is no obligation of the town or of the commission on this one. And I would recommend that the commission authorize, I guess the way Nick had it set up was me to sign for the commission, the municipal certification, and pass that on to Nick.
Very good. Does any commissioner have any questions? I don't see any, so I think at this juncture, it'd be appropriate to entertain a motion to authorize Mark Garrett as the Environmental Affairs Coordinator for the town of Dartmouth to issue a municipal certification on the project that DNRT has presented to us, the DNRT Orchid Conservation Restriction at 179 Jordan Road, map 6, lot 2. I finally got that right.
So moved.
Second.
We
Second.
have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donald,
yes,
Megan,
yes,
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Good luck with that project. Sounds really good.
Thanks very much, commissioners.
Nick, I should have that signed midday tomorrow. So if you want to come in the afternoon to pick it up, should be
Thanks, Mark.
available.
Much
Yep.
appreciated.
Okay, now there's the next item for discussion is really we're only allowed to have any commissioners who voted on that to vote on this. So if you didn't vote on the order of conditions, you're not allowed to vote on the conditions. Okay, so we have to have the same people. Is there anyone here this evening who did not vote on that matter? That was last meeting.
well, I did not.
Okay. So you're not going to be able to vote on this one.
That's fine.
Donna.
Yeah.
But 1, 2, 3, 4. So we still have 4. So we would have enough to do it. Commissioners, James did give us, I thought very thoughtful for James to do this. He gave us what he proposed for the conditions. Previously, Mark had sent around the commission's standard special conditions, and James took it from there. I thought that you did a really good job, James.
Thank you.
And also Mark had reviewed what James presented, and there were some of Mark's comments there as well. And commissioners should understand that it obviously put Mark in an awkward position since staff's recommendation had been not to issue the order of conditions. So we went against staff's recommendations, which is awfully difficult for him now to tell us what the special conditions should be, right? So he did agree to give us some degree of guidance to say whether we're out of our jurisdiction or not. And I appreciate that, Mark. But, it's up to us. This is usually something we just listen to him do. We have to do it ourselves tonight. Okay. So I thought you did a really good job with those, James. I didn't see anything in there that I was troubled by. Our conditions. I think you pretty much touched every base that I was concerned about
Okay,
in
good.
those special conditions. The only thing I'd ask Mark, was anything that James proposed out of our jurisdiction?
Well, I'm a little concerned about the 125%. bond. I don't know the answer to this question, and I would yield to you, Mike. I don't know that you can charge more or hold more in a bond than the cost of restoration. So I think the max you can go is 100%. I think, I don't know that for certain, but I don't know that you can ask for more than the project is worth. That was one issue. The other concern I had was, the requirement to do do an evaluation. I don't know how you can ask that after the project has been approved. My recommendation was to do that as part of the application. I thought it was prudent. I think that the commission has, and again, this is not my personal opinion, this is how I see it from, a legal regulatory perspective. I don't know how you can require an analysis after the fact. The other concern I have is, I'm not sure, it's a nice idea, but I'm not sure whether you can require the applicant to have a third-party peer review of the work and monitoring. I mean, I think that's the responsibility of the conservation staff to monitor projects which we issue permits on. And again, having somebody on somebody else's payroll monitoring, I don't know that that is fair either. You'd like to think that everything would be objective, but obviously there's a time when it might not be as objective as it needs to be, and that would present certain conflicts with, I think, staff who may generate an opinion by their observations. So those were the areas of my concern. I leave it to you to determine how far you want to go with those. Again, for the record, I reviewed these relative to what I felt were the legal aspects, the proper regulatory aspects, and what I thought was within commission jurisdiction. I am not putting a value judgment on any one of these things in particular. As Mike said, I don't think I can be objective in writing conditions and reading your minds as to an approval in opposition to my recommendation. You had every right to do that. I'm not questioning that. But Mike is right. It does put staff in a difficult position to be as objective as they need to be to represent the commission's wishes.
I think those are good points, Mark, as to the first, the bond. The legal prohibition is to have a bond which is onerous. So it acts as a block to actually implementing. So if you had a project and you want a bond of 200% of the cost, that would be an illegal bond. Now, I don't really have a problem just going with the bond at the actual cost, because that's more, I mean, I think we're going to have, I believe we're going to have no issues here with the ability of the property owner to complete the work as detailed in the plan. So I don't see us needing to exercise under the bond, but I would be satisfied with 100%, not 120. But if the commissioners want to go up on that, that's fine. I don't think that would be reaching, but if we went much above that, I think we would be reaching the point where it could be deemed onerous.
I just threw the 125 on there because, I figured we get, the cost is, I'm just saying $15,000 cost. We'll just say, just for safety's sake. And
Yeah,
then,
I mean, I understand what you did, James. I didn't have
Yeah.
a problem with it.
But again, 100% is fine with me. I mean, I think that's also fine. I just toss it in there just for cost overruns and everything like that. That might, whatever might happen. So be it.
I
But
think that, I
100%
could
fine
live
with
with
me.
that myself. Frankly, I could live with either one.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'd go any higher than that. That's what I'm
No.
saying.
Agreed.
As far as the evaluation, I do agree with you, Mark. when I read it, I didn't really think about it the way you said it, but once you said it, it made sense to me. You can't ask somebody to evaluate something you've already approved. So that's kind of like trying to close the barn door after the horse is out of the barn. So I think that would have to come out.
I was I don't know if I worded it this way, but I was more talking about the finished product, the finished dune, to make sure that it's the way it should be. Maybe I
Yeah,
worded
that's
it.
the way I thought, but it was. So maybe
Did I word it in a misleading way?
know.
Because I was mainly concerned about just the finished product. I know about the what's going on now, to whatever degree.
But let me ask you a quick question. Would that not be accomplished with, I mean, we've already approved the plan, right? And so
Yeah.
would that not be accomplished with an as-built?
Yeah.
Because now somebody is saying they did exactly what you approved.
That's true.
And I think,
It does come under the certificate of compliance request. Okay, we don't sign off until they've done it the way the plan says it.
right.
Okay. All right.
That's-
Yeah.
So I think it is covered by that. And I
Okay,
could live
perfect.
with
Yeah,
that
there you go.
coming out.
That's
And yeah, I do agree with Mark. The inspection and periodic inspection and reporting is really, that's staff. They can go in anytime they want and look. And we
Yeah.
say that in our standard special conditions, that
Yes,
staff
we can-
has the
we-
right to do that when they
Yeah.
want to.
Then-
And I
and
do
that-
think it probably puts us in a difficult position if staff is making some observations and those differ from the third party applicant's hired professional.
Yeah.
Because I think
Again, as regulators, we're regulating the project.
Hmm.
If we see a problem, we approach the applicant or their agents and say, look, this looks inconsistent. If they want to counter that with an argument, so be it.
Yeah.
Again, our position is to ask the questions and make the observations. We should not be doing the analysis of the project or reevaluating further analyses. We go out there, we do our inspections. It is what they say it was, or it's not. That's
Yeah. Then we can
Mark,
just
I think you make a good point.
Yeah.
To me, I with your modifications that you articulated tonight, I think, James, you did a fantastic job of putting together special conditions, which I think touched on every one of the concerns that I had as a commissioner. I have nothing I want to add to it. Does any commissioner who've read those conditions have any comments they'd want to make on it?
My primary concern was the performance bond itself. I don't disagree with the need for it, so as long as we all agree it's appropriate, I'm fine with 100%.
Okay. Does any other commissioner have any concerns?
Can I raise one other general comment that I made on several of these? I thought they were duplicative of existing special or standard conditions. Pre-construction meeting condition precedent, that we do that. That's in our conditions. So where I noted duplication, because I did cross-reference, there was on page 3, there's a comment about sedimentation and erosion. Well, we have our standard conditions, so it's covered under that. So there were places where I saw that, not that they were bad conditions, but we've already written them and we've already have them in place. I don't think it's fair to restate them over and over again.
Well, I got a question for you, Mark. Maybe I was wrong, but I thought what James was doing was trying to give us the special conditions that he thought would be the special conditions for this project. And I understood when I read it, some of these were already in our pre-printed special conditions, but I thought that, you know, we could use the exact language from our pre-printed special conditions, or we can take our pre-printed special conditions and add in those that are different that James
Well, then
brought up.
I would ask the commission this question. I took this as added conditions to what we already have, because you voted in, the motion that was made was to issue a standard order of conditions, which we have as
Yep.
per the plan, with supporting materials, subject to conditions to be imposed at the next public meeting. I took that as standard conditions plus, not these would be the replacement to the standard conditions. I don't
Gotcha.
have a preference either way, but I want the commission to understand what the motion says and what this document represents, because this document is not standard conditions. These are different conditions, all fine, well, and good, but the motion said standard order of conditions.
Well, I think,
So-
you know, and you did point that out in your comments regarding James's efforts here. And I think to be consistent then, but I did interpret it that when I read James's special conditions, I interpreted as these were going to be the conditions. But then when I saw your comment, I said, you know, I think it probably should be, we add in the things that aren't in our special conditions standard and just sort of amplify it, right? Was that, what was your,
This
what was
was
your,
to amend. I thought these were to amend our standard conditions, which whatever you folks want to do is
well,
fine
let
with
me
me.
find out. James, you're the author, so why do I speculate here?
Well, what I did is I basically took our standard order of conditions and then used all of the info that I had throughout all the hearings on this one, and put it in there basically as keeping the standard order of conditions and then just adjusting it. And so I can see, Mark, where you're seeing it as like, you know, I'm giving you here's the additional addendum while it's still including a bunch of the original standard operating condition stuff. And so what I did, Mike, you are correct, is I took this basically as the standard operating conditions, upgraded it to this one specifically, and figured we were going to use that. Now, if you want, I can just go and take everything that's a duplicate out and send it back. And that can just be the thing that we need to approve as the addendum to the already approved standard operating conditions.
You know,
That
James,
way it'll just clean it up and
I'm
it'll
glad to know
look
that
a lot
wasn't,
easier.
I wasn't completely wrong in the way I read what you presented, but seeing Mark's comment, I think he's correct procedurally how we have to handle this. We had approved this, our standard special conditions with adjustments, and I think we should include your adjustments to our standard special conditions associated with this project. So that way we're consistent with how
Yeah.
the motion was at the previous meeting.
Oh yeah, I can do that.
That'd be helpful.
What I would suggest is that tomorrow I take James's conditions, the non-duplicative conditions, I merge them into our standard conditions as the recommended conditions for 15/27/63, and I submit them to the commission for your review. Now, commission also has to understand, this hearing was closed on September 9th. You've got 21 days to issue an order of conditions. Okay, we are now probably 2/3 of the way there. So while we still have some time, we don't have a lot of time. So this is not something that can protract out for, you know, days and days. So I mean, this is my plan is whatever is decided tonight, I would do that. It would be my first item to do tomorrow, because I have more time to take care of the 2800 hearing conditions than I do this one, and get this out to everybody. Or just incorporate it into the order of conditions and issue to DEP. Again, it's your choice, not mine. as to how you want me to go, but, you know, in this case, I had assumed I would play the administrator's role and, you know, merge whatever document is decided upon into a standard order. What would be easiest for me and is to incorporate James's comment or conditions as they are written, okay, as the standard or the standard order, or if you don't want to incorporate them, I just issue the standard order that we have. The third option is to commingle the two to create a singular document that represents both, which I think is, as I read the motion, what the motion was made last week when the after the public hearing was closed.
Yeah, I'm envisioning this as you were talking, that what we would do is have our standard order of conditions and add to it those that were suggested by James. And that would then be the special conditions for this project. So our standard order of conditions with the merged changes that James had made, I think that would make sense to me. Now, we also, given that time frame you just described, this all has to be done before our next meeting.
Our next meeting is too late.
That's what I'm saying. It has to be done before our next
You have
meeting.
basically basically a week. I think you have 8 days.
So
if I
I'm
can.
saying, commissioners, please chime in, but I think if we are, if you've already offered to do it, but Mark, if you would integrate James's changes into this standard order of conditions, so take the ones that aren't in here. We're not going to doctor the wording of those that are already here. Then we could vote that tonight to do that. And then that would be then applicable for issuance once it's done. We wouldn't have to vote again.
Sounds good.
And especially to get it out to, because I see Rick's here, but to get it out to Rick and to the whole thing, the order of conditions plus these special conditions. So they have it within the time frame.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Mhm.
As am I.
So at this point, I would entertain a motion to integrate the special conditions that were presented by James into our standard special conditions, and have Mark then append those to our order of conditions and issue those to the applicant and applicant's professionals.
So
Well,
moved.
well, wait a minute. Whoa. I
Wait,
want to
what?
understand this. I want to do this right. So we're going to integrate, we're going to create an order of conditions.
Right?
We're putting this out for review again
No,
to, or am I, because the way it works, I mean, we do this electronically. I create the order of conditions with all special conditions and I issue electronically to DEP. And that
Yep.
closes what we're doing.
right.
That's the standard process. Then what I do is I contact the applicant or their agent, in this case, Rick, and I would say, the order of conditions is on the portal for you to record or use at your discretion, which leaves the opportunity for an appeal of the conditions if they don't agree with the conditions. Even though they're conditions of approval, they can still appeal. So those are the options that are in front of me as staff. Are you asking me to merge and integrate, then send to the applicant for their comments to come back and have?
No,
I just
no,
think,
I'm saying we're done after we vote
okay,
tonight.
okay, I just want to be clear in my head what the intention is. I will do whatever you folks want.
Yeah, I mean, we're done at that point.
Okay,
Um,
so
And-
I'm sitting here, what I'm hearing is merge the existing conditions and James's recommendations that are not duplicative, and then issue the order of conditions as we do.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
fine.
exactly what
Got
I
it.
meant to say. If I didn't say
Okay.
it, that's
Okay.
exactly what I meant to say.
Okay,
So with that being said, the motion be
So
made,
moved.
Second,
seconded. Okay, roll call vote. Liz,
yes.
James,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan,
yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, so I do want to make sure that, I may have missaid it, Mark, and if I did, I apologize, but that was what I intended to say.
okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure I understood.
No, I think you did. I think
Thank you
did.
for your help, Mark.
No, not a problem, not a problem.
So
But I
is
think
Buddy
Buddy
here?
is here.
I
Yes, he
see
is.
him. Yes, I do. So we're going to move up to the CPC CR discussion. And Buddy, you got the floor.
Hello there. Thank you I appreciate the time to speak to you all. Mark and I have had conversations about this topic of kind of using CPA funds for open space preservation. And we've also had a meeting with the likes of DNRT and Buzzards Bay Coalition and Audubon, just to kind of get their input about how, what their experience and participation has been in these kinds of projects. A little bit of background is we've done a lot of open space acquisition with CPA funds. It's actually, I think, 2/3 of all of the CPA expenditures have been open space, either recreation, conservation, or agricultural preservation. And in the last one that we did, which is the Russell Mills, the Department of Environmental Protection paused and raised concerns about how the warrant language and the exchange of CPA funds was done, and determined that even though it's similar to how we've done other projects in the past 10, 20 or more years, they did not feel that was totally compliant with the Community Preservation Act. And the structure that they had concerns about is one in which this be an example of DNRT is interested in purchasing property and then placing a restriction on the property, conservation restriction. They apply for CPA funds that then the town meeting approves an award to DNRT. It basically represents the value of the conservation restriction. And DNRT goes and purchases the property and then places a conservation restriction on the property. And in some cases, the holder of the restriction might be another entity such as Buzzards Bay Coalition. The state raised concerns, the current administration, that did not wasn't in compliance with the CPA, because the CPA requires that the town acquire a real property interest in using CPA funds. So that could be either the town could just outright purchase a piece of property, or the town could purchase a conservation restriction, which would represent a real property interest in the acquisition. And so the way we need to proceed going forward is that say DNRT wanted to purchase a piece of property, and they would have a restriction placed on it. So say it was about, let's say it was a $100,000 piece of property, and the value of the property with the restriction might be 50,000, just as an example. The town would request CPA funds in the amount of $50,000 to purchase a conservation restriction from DNRT. And DNRT would go to the closing with $100,000, buy the property, and then sell a conservation restriction to the town for 50. And in the end, you have a piece of property that is restricted from future development, and the bottom line for DNRT was $50,000. In the past, DNRT would get the $50,000 from the town through the CPA, and then go with that money and purchase the property. And then after they purchased it, place a restriction on it. And basically the state was saying there's no bright line of where the CPA funds go back to the town under those circumstances. So going forward, there probably will be more involvement of perhaps the Conservation Commission in these projects, because the three scenarios basically are if the town could, like Pascamasket drinking water kind of preservation project, the town can go to the CPC and file an application for the money needed to purchase the property outright. And that's very straightforward. The town's going to end up being owner of the property. That's very clear. There could be DNRT in the future wanting to acquire a piece of property, and part of financing this, they would like to take advantage of CPA funds. What they would have to do is basically have the town apply to the CPC for the funds needed to purchase a conservation restriction on the property that DNRT intends to purchase. So that I would imagine, would often be the Conservation Commission on behalf of the town applying for the funds to purchase the CR. Mark and I have talked at length about the workload and how to manage that. And one thing that looks kind of possible is that a conservation restriction can be jointly held. So it's very possible that the town could hold the CR jointly with, say, Buzzards Bay Coalition. In those instances, the CPA funds can be used as an endowment for entities that hold restrictions. So let's say that DNRT wanted to purchase a piece of property. They come to the Conservation Commission and say, we'd like to purchase this property and have the town purchase the conservation restriction. The Conservation Commission may decide that it's in its best interest of managing workload, they'd want to hold this restriction jointly with Buzzards Bay. And the way that would work is, and Buzzards Bay says, well, we could do that, but it'll cost $20,000 for an endowment. What would happen is the town would come to the CPC with an application for the funds needed to purchase the conservation restriction, and Buzzards Bay separately would come to the CPC requesting the $20,000 because for the endowment to jointly hold the restriction. And then the CPC would recommend there would be 2 warrants at town meeting, basically. So that's kind of in a nutshell how this, how we see this working. It may mean that someone like a DNRT, the CPC would be advising applicants to, if they have a plan to purchase a piece of property and want to take advantage of CPA funds to finance this, they need to come to the Conservation Commission and present that idea and have that conversation about the town purchasing a conservation restriction, and work out whether or not that's jointly held or not, in order for both entities to come, the town and the holder of the restriction to come to the CPC prior to town meeting so we could process their applications. So I'll stop there. That may be confusing, but it hopefully could follow how that works. But that's kind of the change, and wanted to kind of talk to you all about, answer questions you might have. And there's probably some things that would need to be done to try to get ahead of this in the future.
It's good to be ahead of the curve instead of being overwhelmed by it. So I appreciate the forward thinking that's gone into this. Does any commissioner have any questions they want to ask Buddy or Mark, because they were both discussing this? So I think it's more complex now than it was before, but it seems like there's a workaround that allows us to still protect land and open spaces with CPC money.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that might be helpful, I think Mark.
Nick?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Nick.
Sorry to interrupt. You've done a lot of work on this, Buddy, and we've talked at different points along the way. I was just listening to the different options that you laid out, and it's quite clear that the Community Preservation Act requires the town to gain some kind of ownership interest. That's why the CR is part of the typical approach. And while I understand that a CR can be jointly held, I don't know if you've encountered or found whether or not the town could be a co-owner in fee of a parcel through a CPC application. For example, would it be possible for us to apply for CPC funds for open space protection and propose that the town be a co-owner of that? Is that just too crazy of an idea, or is this something that might be worth looking into?
Yeah, I don't, and not a lot that a parcel that was subdivided, but co-owner of a single, of a parcel. I don't know if that's been done before. I think, the town would, certainly would want to sort out what co-ownership would look like and how would that be managed and all of that. But I would say if there was co-ownership, then there was probably some way to apportion what the value of that interest was.
Certainly, and to outline the responsibilities and roles in a memorandum of agreement or something like that. Maybe it's more complicated, but I just thought that would take the whole problem of the conservation restriction monitoring and its cost and administrative burden out of the picture. There would be no CR in a sense. It would be co-owned by the nonprofit and the town, which is just a different approach. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good thought, Nick. Speaking not as a member of CPC, but Buddy understands that legislation far better than I do. But from the town standpoint, I could tell you that one of the issues will be liability.
Mm-hmm.
Once the town's on the ownership rolls, then somebody gets hurt on the property. You have somebody doing illegal dumping, you got some hazardous materials that have to be removed. The town is on the hook, and I think that's going to be the stumbling block for the town.
Mhm.
I would think it would be cleaner if DNRT or Audubon or whoever it was owned the property, and the town held a CR on it. The only question then is the monitoring of the CR, and the cost associated with that, and the administrative costs of applying for funds. If those could be addressed, probably the cleanest way would be for the town simply to own a CR. If someone else could monitor it, that would be wonderful.
Mhm.
If you know, both DNRT and the town jointly held the CR, does the town still have responsibility to monitor it, or could that be done exclusively by Buzzards Bay, Audubon, whomever, even?
That's a good question. I think if you're a holder of a CR, you do have some responsibility as the holder. Now, you can, in the document itself, indicate which of the holders is going to actually do the monitoring, or you can hire out somebody, but technically you'd be responsible as well. You
So
would
we'd
then
be
have
responsible,
to
but
fallback position and
theoretically,
say, but wait a minute, you said you were going to do it.
Mhm.
So you would have that, but one of
And
the
also-
problems you have as a town is you're the proverbial deep pocket, right? You're the big boy in town, and they always, if there's any issues which come up, the town's going to be obviously defendant number one. Okay, I personally understand that we could negotiate that into the CR and maybe ameliorate some of those problems.
we still have
But
the responsibility, even if
you still will
I
have
mean,
responsibility.
the issue becomes, even if you're a co-holder of the CR, you're responsible if there's a problem. The endowment covers the monitoring. It doesn't cover the fixing of the problem. And the fixing of the problem, you could catch the violator, but then you have to pay to, legally force them to fix the problem. I mean, I don't dislike open space. I truly enjoy it. And the Commonwealth has been rather lax in the way they've done this over the past 30 years, as Buddy said. And they've let a lot of things slide. And now, with costs being what they are, they're looking for every dollar that they can find. And they have identified this particular program, along with many others, where monies are being spent and communities are not holding up their end of the bargain. I mean, CPC funds are Dartmouth taxpayers' funds. Okay, it's a tax on real estate transactions. It's money that's coming out of the municipalities' residents' pockets, and the state wants accountability. And they're not doing this to say, "Hey, towns, find a way to circumvent the system." They want the towns part of it, and they're not addressing. And my major concern here is the labor requirements of holding CRs, and the liabilities associated with holding CRs and the costs associated with that. And until we can talk about wanting open space. Wanting it is nice, but how do you implement it? And without a really formalized open space program, which Dartmouth does not have. Okay, we don't even have an open space committee. Okay, we have 2 people in the conservation office who chase down a lot of open space. I don't know how active we can really be as participants. And I know that CPC, as Mike, you called it, is the deep pocket here. People can buy property and people can buy CRs without CPC money. It happens to be a convenient tool for everybody, and I understand why. It is a good way to finance these things. But coming with the gifts of the financing comes the responsibilities, and that's where it gets a little dicey And in reading what Buddy sent, I mean, of the three options that he listed, the third one, which was the, somebody has the ownership of the property and then they sell the CR to the town and somebody, is probably the best way to go in the short term. I don't know if that solves the problem, but that's kind of how I've looked at it. I mean, I understand that that's a means of certainly navigating these waters, which are frankly somewhat complicated, even on a good day. And I think that they're catching up, up on 100 Cambridge Street in Boston. They're catching up with what they've let happen in the past. And it's not, in their eyes, it's not doing them a whole lot of good. And ultimately, the responsibility falls on the locale, wherever you are. And those are my general concerns of working through this.
So option 3, Mark, addresses your concerns about labor and cost, but not liability to the town. Right?
Yeah, in short, it does. Yes. It's a means of addressing the labor side, but not the cost side.
Yeah.
And the other concern that comes in, and I know Buddy said $15,000 is an endowment. What happens when that money runs out? And it does. I mean, we had it run out on us on a piece of property that everybody thought conservation owned up in North Dartmouth, and we didn't own it because the deed was recorded incorrectly, and it's a select board's property, and we expended, I think it was $25,000 of endowment over a number of years. Now there's no money, so now we have to literally line item budget the required monitoring, and it's not a CR property; it's actually a ash landfill, so it's a DEP hazardous waste, monitoring. So the costs, you do endowments dry up. What do we do at the end? What's the next step?
Well, I think option 3 is at least the short-term solution. I guess the long-term solution would be to give by legislation municipal immunity if they're the holder of a CR. That will eliminate at least the liability standpoint. Doesn't solve the work product standpoint unless you outsource it, or the co-owner of the CR agrees to perform all of that work. But there's still some fiscal risk, and I don't see the legislation changing to allow for municipal immunity as the steward of a CR.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of belies the whole fact. That's like saying, I'm going to make you the trustee of my trust, but I'm going to give you immunity for whatever happens. It's like, not likely to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy, I have a question for you, and this might be this discussion might be the impetus for this. Have you spoken now with the new town administration about this? The new chairman of the select board, the new town administrator, to get their feel on this? I have not, so I don't know where they stand on this.
Yeah, I have talked to Cody about this, and just put it on kind of his radar screen that we have a process that there's going to be a change in the process that has been historically used in Dartmouth, and I relayed to him that that the concern about labor and ability, just what the labor involved in the ability to manage the CRs, and where that third option of owning the CR seems to be right now the most feasible. So yeah, I gave him some of that background on it. Haven't talked to anybody at the select board about.
Would it be prudent for yourself, myself, Mike, as the chairman of the commission, and maybe Nick, to maybe sit down with Cody and have a broader discussion on this? If I have found that if you don't have the support of the third floor on this, you're really treading water. And I think that from my standpoint, for a number of reasons, which we've all spoken about at different times, and it's related to the labor requirements, this might be a good time to have this discussion and put it on the table. If we are who we say we are, then you got to put your money where your mouth is. And the CPC is a great tool. Don't get me wrong, but like everything, it's got its rules and its requirements, and sometimes they're a little bit more restrictive than the user would like.
Mhm.
Whoever that user is.
Well, certainly the town is going to have to be supportive of jointly holding the CR, because that means there needs to be a contract. And I would imagine that you would want to have pretty much a standard contract form for that responsibility or relationship. So yeah, there's definitely, the town is going to have to support some of the logistics of this. But it's the town has been and town meeting's been very supportive of the use of CPA funds for open space, and this is the process. This is the path we have to take, and that will be for any recreation land that needs a restriction on it, for certainly any open space and stuff. So I don't know, Mike, what your thought about that kind of a joint meeting? Certainly I can participate in that.
I would certainly welcome the opportunity to
Okay.
be party to that. So you can count me in. My best days would be, well, not this week, but aside from this week would be Thursdays or Fridays. I'm open all day. Those are usually my days off.
All right, great. So maybe if Mark, I don't know if you could be the one to pull together something, you probably can.
Sure, I'll contact Cody, and we'll try to get something scheduled, and we'll shoot for Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, if we are, what we will be advising applicants going forward is if they are interested in using CPA funds to acquire a property for open space, they need to approach the Conservation Commission as soon as possible, talk to Mark about the interest, and get clear about whether this is if the town is going to hold the conservation restriction jointly, and who might be that entity that would be willing to do that. So I would imagine the interested party would want to do that kind of legwork. It wouldn't be Mark's to do I would come to Mark and say, hey, we want to buy this, we've got an option on this piece of land, and we want to use CPA funds to help finance the thing. And this entity is willing to jointly hold the CR and get that in front of you all before the CPC application deadline, so that when we have an application deadline, we would have the application from the town for the conservation restriction money, and from that entity for the jointly for the endowment for the CR. But I appreciate folks' time. If there aren't any other questions, And if something does come up, just Mark can get a hold.
Yeah, I'll, between now and the weekend, I think I'll try to get on this with Cody and try to set something up and see if we can get a
Okay.
time to do this. And I will copy you on whatever I send up to him. And Mike, I will copy you also.
Great.
I appreciate that. Okay. Buddy, thank you for updating us on the recent developments and your thoughts on a potential workout.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the time. Take care.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
buddy.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, that leaves us with our draft wetland regulations, discussion.
Well, do you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay, well, we're at a place now where I thought we were a lot closer to the end than we are, unfortunately. I sent you a copy of an updated version where I tried to address some of town council's comments. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and town council sees things a little bit differently than I do. And so I still have some, there still are many unanswered issues. I think the biggest thing that I did was one of council's biggest complaints was that we were referencing the filing procedures, but the filing procedures were not in the regulations per se. I thought you could do it by reference. So I basically took apart our filing document and inserted it and edited it to be appropriate to the regulations. That was the biggest piece I put in. I don't know how much that really addresses town council's concerns. But that was really what I did, and that's what I've sent you, and that was updated. I forget the exact date, but it was within the past couple of weeks. The other thing I sent was a letter that we had briefly discussed that town council wrote to me to distribute to the commission, in which council cites several policy matters that the commission has to address how they want to handle relative to the regulations being in response to the bylaw. I think the big concern that I have is that right now we have a bylaw with no implementable regulations. The existing regs do not speak to the bylaw as it's been revised, and that is a problem. The second issue I have, and I'm in a bit of a disagreement with town council on this. I know it was a subject of discussion, but council seems to think that we have decided that we would not do wetland A1 assessments anymore, and I don't ever remember us making that decision. I think we talked about the issues of problems associated with doing A1s. We've tried to clean that process up. And quite frankly, wetland A1s are a good source of revenue for the Conservation Commission. For those of you who don't know, the state allows us to maintain a conservation fund, which is separate and distinct from the general fund and can only be used for uses to better wetland protection, for lack of a better vague description. Some of you may recall of last year, we took some money out of that account and gave it to the Buzzards Bay Coalition as part of their funding for the Buttonwood Brook assessment and improvement work to support both the Buzzards Bay Coalition and the New Bedford Conservation Commission, who was taking quite a big position on this because the work they were prescribing was largely within the Buttonwood the Buttonwood Park Zoo. And, while that is all within New Bedford, its water discharges into sewers and dumps into Dartmouth, dumps into the brook, which immediately crosses the town line, and their problem becomes our problem. So that fund exists, and frankly, that fund is used for several things. Portion of it underwrites Eduardo's salary. So the abandonment of that resource might be problematic, and I don't know that that was the intention of the Conservation Commission. I have reworked the wording not to be a permit requirement, but a service provided by the commission to assist applicants in their project planning as it relates to wetlands. Town council hasn't seen that language. I wanted to run that by you beforehand to get a sense of where you sit on it. I mean, ultimately, and I sooner rather than later, I think we need to have a heart-to-heart with town council as to the direction that we want to go with this. And I would like to avoid this, but I would fear having to modify the bylaw again and going through that entire process again through town meeting and then back to the Attorney General. I want to wrap this up. I really didn't think this was going to be all that complicated, but old documents tend to get old very fast and the fix is a little difficult. And now we're talking about legal terminology as it relates to regulatory as opposed to scientific assessments and application as it relates to regulatory. And that's a little out of my wheelhouse. Mike, you're muted. I can tell you're frustrated, but you're muted.
Just to go to answer your first question, I'm surprised that town council was surprised because this was something that was discussed with town council, and initially he took the position he came back to, but after our discussion, I distinctly remember he had agreed we can do it, but we had to be more careful in our wording. So it's like I want certainly to do everything correctly, but I want to have things in writing from town council so we don't go back and forth. And it seems like the sand, we're trying to build a house on sand. The foundation keeps shifting on me, and I'm very frustrated by that because I want to make progress. I don't want to replow old ground. I mean, we've gone how long now without regulations?
Well, it's been the Attorney General approved the bylaw revision November of 2024.
Okay,
so we're a year.
We're going to be
We're a
approaching
year
1 year.
without regulations that address that revised bylaw in town council's eyes. I don't know that, but that's what he says. So
we're going to be approaching a year with no regulations to the approved bylaws. That's not acceptable. That's just not acceptable.
I know that.
And I'm not. Listen, I'm not bringing this upon you. I know you know it. I'm just thinking though that we have to have clarity and consistency in the opinions rendered so that we can take that into account in finally getting approvable regulations. We had not, how many iterations were there of the bylaws? I thought this was going to be easy with the regulations, but it seemed to get a life of its own. I feel like we're getting paid by the word or something. I don't know what's going on here, but it's painful, and it gives new meaning to bureaucracy. We should be able to get things done in a reasonably short amount of time. We're not reinventing the wheel. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, yeah, I've modified an existing document. I haven't rewritten the document. I've taken your old regulations and I've tried to, massage them into addressing some new requirements. And, you know, my thought initially was that we went from hand filing of hard copies to required electronic filing. And that to me was the biggest change for both, you know, and then we got sidetracked into other things, and I don't know why, but we did. And you know, I've done a lot of writing, and I think I know how to write these things. But there's an awful lot of read on these, and you know, at this point, I don't know. I mean, I don't work for town council. I work for you, so you know, I need guidance as to how to proceed, and I just don't want to waste time writing for things that are unnecessary. If they are unnecessary, so be it.
I got a question. Is this really just that town council wants to draft our regulations? I mean,
I don't know. I
it's,
haven't asked them
it
that.
appears to me that's more the case than not. Okay.
Yep.
And it's like, tell me, you know, I want to know if there's going to be edits to what was presented to us as commissioners and we basically approved. I want to know if there's going to be edits, why? Where's the illegality? If he says, well, it's conflicting with, well, show me where it's conflicting and maybe I'll agree. I don't want to have a conclusion. I want to have facts to draw on, because this is an inordinately long period of time to have what I think is a pretty fundamental gap in the town's regulatory scheme. Okay. Because we've gone a year without regulations which work, right? So does that tell me we don't need regulations? Maybe. I mean, we've gone a year, and you know, I really am just at a loss for words. Maybe I've got too many words spouting out of my mouth, but it's incredibly frustrating. And I can only imagine where you've been the author of these documents, Mark, how frustrating that must be. Just having read them and given some comments and talked about them leads me to the point of near tears. And, you know, there's got to be some finality here. And I just need to see clarity in the comments with the recitation to why they're being made, not just to show how smart you are. I want to know why they're being made. Where's the illegal part of this? What law are we violating? What rule or regulation are we violating? Right? That's what town council should be giving us, the clarity to know how to stay on the track. And I don't get that. I don't get it when it shifts. It shouldn't shift. It should be the same. Iteration 1 through iteration 3, whatever it is, it should be the same. Here's the guidance. Here's the guideline. Stay within the white lines, and you'll be fine. I don't think we strayed over the white lines, to be candid with you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have voted for it. So it is frustrating to me, as you can tell. And I'll just shut up. I've said enough about it. Mike's frustrated. Who cares? But I get it. I just want
Well,
I want this town to work is what I want. I want it to work well, and I want our little section of the town government to work well and be a fair, impartial, and understandable part of the whole process here. And to that end, if we get good regulations, we'll be better at our job and more understanding from the public.
if I could make a suggestion, I don't want to speak for any other commissioner here, but it's my sense that we're really not in a place to move forward just yet. If I'm wrong, please tell me. And I don't like to schedule useless meetings, but maybe it's a time for Mike, Brian, and myself to sit down as a subset and try to figure out what the heck we have to do so that then we can provide to the rest of the commissioners something reasonable. Because right now, I think we're just swinging at the wind and, we're not making any contact. And, you know, Mike is right. I am frustrated. I got many more things I could be doing. I don't mind writing regulations, but it just, when I'm not sure if I'm meeting an endpoint, it's a little difficult. So I would suggest if, Mike, you're willing to do that, the commission is comfortable with that. Again, you know, a smaller group, we can proceed and then we can come back to the commission with or without town council with, you know, some better guidance.
Mark, Thursdays, Fridays. Okay?
If the
Thursdays,
commission's
Fridays,
okay with that, I got Thursdays and Fridays. I got it.
Thursdays, Fridays. I think that's a sensible, direction for us to take because we have to get clarity and finality here. We have to have regulations. And, one way or the other, I want to just make sure that the next iteration that comes out is the one that gets approved.
Yep, I
You know?
agree. I agree. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yep.
I got a thumbs up. I think a head shake. Meg,
I'm
you good with
I'm
that?
gonna do it.
Yes.
And that's good with that?
Yeah,
Don, you
yeah, I'm
good?
good. I'm
Yes.
appreciative. Thank you.
Okay, so why don't we proceed with that?
All
Okay,
right,
and
that leaves us
I-
with one option left, or one motion left, the motion to adjourn, the one you all were waiting for with bated breath. So
So
I'll
moved.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Donald,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Matt.
yes.
My vote is yes. Meeting is adjourned. Again, thank you, everybody.